Derek Carr, the plaid shirt of NFL QBs. Today, I, Brandon Perna, am answering a question nobody has ever answered. How powerful is the precious blood of Jesus Christ?
Never be able to comprehend the transformative power of the precious blood of Jesus Christ.
Another way to say that is, how good was Derek Carr really? I am sure you've seen these types of videos before on YouTube, a question that's posed about a player that is literally in the Hall of Fame. How good was Shannon Sharpe really?
I'm better than you are, you know it. Be truthful.
He was freaking good. How good was Steve Young? He was incredible. Well, today I'm asking that question about recently retired quarterback Derek Carr, and unlike those other guys, this is a tough question to answer definitively, and it's riddled with nuance. Derek Carr's the only quarterback I've ever seen get the head coach who drafted him fired. Twice. As a Broncos fan, I got to watch more Derek Carr football than your average NFL viewer, and my honest thought is that he is exactly the type of quarterback everyone projected him to be coming out of Fresno State. A second round, good but not great quarterback who mostly gets the job done. You tell yourself it could be a lot worse. He's like a husband who is very kind, has a steady job, but maybe a little short in the sack. Carr's greatest achievement is earning $200 million plus and never winning a playoff game. Carr's greatest failure is earning $200+ million and never winning a playoff game. This is That's Good Sports, and today we are going balls deep into Derek Carr. So open that hood, buddy, because this is going to be a thorough inspection of your V6 with my dipstick. Today's episode is sponsored by Good Chop /YouTube and my code That'sGood50 to get you $50 off your first Good Chop box with my link below. What's Good Chop? It's a box of high-quality American meat and seafood that you can customize that's delivered right to your door. We've been using Good Chop for a couple years now, and I have found the cuts of meat are just better than what they offer at my grocery store. I've probably grilled over 50 ribeye and New York strip steaks for this show alone, and they have added new thick-cut ribeyes, porterhouses, cowboy steaks, and tomahawk steaks. Great for all of your summer grilling, meat-loving needs. Now, Good Chop sources its meat and seafood from American farms and fisheries, and by ordering Good Chop with my code That'sGood50, you're supporting local farms and fisheries. And I actually just took my Good Chop to the mountains and grilled when I was camping. But like an idiot, I forgot to film it. So here I am again, grilling up a couple steaks for Jess and I in the most significant downpour we've had in Denver all year. Great timing. But at least now I can attest that Good Chop is rainproof. We love having Good Chop chicken or ground beef in the freezer at any given time. So if you want to save $50, go to goodchop.com/YouTube and use code That'sGood50 or click my link in the description to get $50 off plus free shipping on your first box. Statistically speaking, Derek Carr is retiring 22nd all-time in career passing yards with 41,245, which is probably more than you would have guessed. He is sandwiched in between Kirk Cousins and Andy Dalton for active players. A Cousins, Dalton, and Carr sandwich? Move over Danger Witch because there's a new ulcer-inducing concoction in town.
That is dangerous.
Something, though, feels very right about Carr, Cousins, and Dalton's being lumped together. Carr's also tied with Joe Flacco at 22nd all-time for passing TDs with 257. A few ahead of Andy Dalton at 253. At this rate, it would be incredibly easy to say Derek Carr's about the 22nd best quarterback of all time and then end the video. But there are people who would argue that had Carr not retired, he wouldn't even be considered the 22nd best quarterback in the league right now. So let's rewind to the triple Ds. I'm talking about David, Darren, and Derek Carr, the Desert Bros from Bakersfield, California, home of the Kern River and Bakersfield Sound, a type of country music that I've never fucking listened to.
I lived in Bakersfield, California, and it took probably about 6 months off the end of my life just living in Bakersfield, growing up there.
Raiders fans probably lost about 6 years of their life watching the team the last 2 decades. Now, Derek's older brother, David Carr, was drafted number 1 overall by the expansion Houston Texans in 2002. The other brother, Darren Carr, is a professional ventriloquist, or he coaches high school football. You choose what you want to believe, and Derek, like his brother, made a name for himself playing quarterback at Fresno State. David is a full 15 years older than Derek. You might remember cute little Derek Carr right here from David's draft.
Eric, I understand that you are the president of the David Carr for Heisman campaign. Is that true?
Yeah.
Supporting his big bro the entire time. When Derek was drafted 12 years later, Seth Wickersham wrote an article back in 2014 about David and Derek Carr called Sins of the Brother, which documents in great detail how the Carr brothers murdered their parents. Oh wait, that doesn't sound right. I'm thinking of the Menendez brothers. They are also not to be confused with the Carr brothers of Wichita, Kansas, Jonathan and Reginald Carr, who went on a week-long crime spree in December of 2000, killing 5 people, known as the Wichita Horror. Although I believe David referred to his time with the Texans as the Houston Horror. David's rookie year was a disaster, and that Carr got totaled as he set the NFL record for most sacks taken in a single season with 76. I often wonder what could have happened to David and his career had he not been tasked with going to an expansion team. Joey Harrington was the second quarterback selected in 2002, and he went 3rd overall to the Lions. So, actually, I don't wonder at all. David Carr was always destined to be great at football and then have his dreams broken by a bad situation in the NFL. Hell, while researching this video, I found this old article with the headline that simply reads, "Former NFL QB David Carr still alive." I hope everyone in the comments just says David Carr is still alive. Understanding David Carr's career, though, as a first overall draft pick that didn't exactly pan out is key in understanding Derek's career and his entrance into the NFL. Had David been able to be the face of the expansion Texans and maybe get a few playoff appearances, I think Derek Carr is a first-round draft pick in 2014. We don't want to believe it, but the NFL is dumb like that. If the first brother drafted is good, the second brother will probably be at least as good with the possibility to be even better. See the Mannings, the Bosas, and Watts as examples. But don't you dare get me started on the McCourty twins. Twins are a completely different story, and it's hard to be objective when you know one twin is always evil.
Come and play with us, Daddy.
Derek Carr was actually far more productive as a passer at Fresno State than David. David tossed 42 touchdowns and 4,308 yards his senior season, a massive leap in production from the 2,338 he had his junior year. Derek, on the other hand, was slinging it at a high level for 3 straight seasons at Fresno. He was targeting future NFL star Davante Adams along the way, which helped his development a ton, but Derek was really fucking good at Fresno State. Over 5,000 passing yards and 50 TDs to just 8 picks his senior year. 24 of those 50 touchdowns went to Davante Adams. By every statistical metric, Derek was a better college quarterback than his brother. So why did he fall to the second round? Well, that question becomes even more puzzling when you remember the 3 quarterbacks who were drafted ahead of him were Blake Bortles, Johnny Manziel, and Teddy Two Gloves Bridgewater. Now, Derek really did pay for the sins of his brother, while Johnny Manziel was just paying to sin. Johnny Manziel was the only QB coming out of the SEC at that time. Bortles was at UCF, and Teddy played at Louisville. Carr had better numbers than all of those guys, and really should have been the first quarterback off the board in that draft class.
The number 1 quarterback in the Mountain West Conference, and to me, honest with you, perhaps the sleeper of the draft this year, in my opinion.
Now, credit the Raiders for having Carr as their top QB in that class and actually drafting him in the perfect spot. Do not credit the Raiders for drafting Carr with the head coach on the hot seat in Dennis Allen, who the team fired after starting 0-4 in 2014. Even with that, Carr had a respectable rookie year, 3,200 passing yards, 21 touchdowns, 12 picks. Just like we watched with Caleb Williams, that came along with very few wins. But Carr was notably better than fellow rookie QB Blake Bortles, who had 17 interceptions in Jacksonville. Manziel was a train wreck chugging through a dumpster fire in Cleveland. And Carr did exactly what you want your young quarterback to do. He actually improved in year 2. The Raiders had a respectable 7-9 season with new head coach Jack Del Rio in Carr's sophomore year. Carr became a flickering light of hope in the black hole, the kind of light that guides a camera through the black hole of your asshole for a colonoscopy. 11 additional touchdowns in 2015 to go with 3,987 passing yards. Peyton Manning was in his final season in Denver. Carr actually played better than Phillip Rivers that year. Not in yards, but in wins. The Chiefs were in their Alex Smith era and the AFC West was wide open. And in 2016, Carr took the reins and rode out his best and most unfortunate year. That season for Carr was truly heaven and hell.
There is a heaven and that there is a hell.
A season that will haunt him until he dies, and one that will be used to showcase his ceiling as an NFL QB. Everything you really need to know about Carr happened in 2016. It was his best season in terms of wins with 12. Carr only netted 10 or more wins as a starter twice in his career. Both times his team made the postseason. Even in Carr's best year, he was still 14th in the league in terms of yards, 8th in passing touchdowns, but one of the best for interceptions. He always had a great touchdown to interception ratio.
At a great rate.
Never flashy, efficiently reliable, like a Prius. Carr's lone 500-yard passing game also came in 2016, an impressive overtime win for the Raiders against the Buccaneers to give Oakland a 5-0 record on the road at that point. Carr threw a 34-yard touchdown to Amari Cooper, another dime in the clutch to Cooper, who had a $173, and the game-tying touchdown to Michael Rivera with less than 2 minutes left. A game the Raiders were lucky to win. Yes, Carr had over 500 passing yards, but his team was penalized 20 frickin' times, including Amari Cooper having this stiff arm called for unnecessary roughness. That was followed by Sebastian Janikowski missing a field goal in overtime, or as I call it, typical Raider shit. Ultimately, Carr persevered and ended the game on 4th down with a nice completion to Seth Roberts, who walked into the end zone after 2 bucks bounced off of him. That year featured the Raiders' best offense since their 2002 Super Bowl losing season. They were 7th in points, 6th in yards. The reason people got high on Derek Carr is because the Raiders were winning games with the bottom third defense, just 20th in points allowed. They also drew the 7th most penalties of any defense. What they were good at was generating turnovers, 2nd best in the NFL with 30. And the Carr-led offense netted the 4th fewest turnovers, which is why the Raiders were good, albeit flawed. It was probably the only time Carr had with the Raiders where he had a complimentary defense. Carr was on fire, winning 8-9 in the second half of the season, including a big win against Cam Newton and the Panthers. Carr bounced back after a terrible game in Kansas City in primetime. He had just 117 passing yards, no touchdowns, and a 49.1 completion percentage in that game. Carr literally had his worst career game during his best career season. That's Derek Carr. He eked out a win against San Diego and then lit up the Colts with 3 passing TDs week 16, and then...
It's broke. It's broke. It's broke.
That happened. The Raiders were up 33-14. Jim Nantz is asking Phil Simms what he thinks of the Raiders passing in that situation.
What did you think of him passing in that situation? You're up 19 with 11 minutes to go in the game.
It's a major hindsight observation, but yes, Jim, I think they should have run the damn ball there.
Run the ball. Run the ball.
What is certain is Derek Carr was having the best season of his career. There was real optimism around the team, and that one play ended it all. The Raiders get destroyed by an average Broncos team the following week, 6-24. Their backup quarterback, Matt McGloin, gets injured in the second quarter, giving way to Connor Cook. The Raiders were a 12-win wildcard team who had to go into Houston with their third-string quarterback and lose a very winnable game to Brock Osweiler and his 14 completions. Derek Carr would have not thrown 3 interceptions in that game like Connor Cook did. Had Carr stayed healthy, the Raiders don't go on a 23-year run without a playoff victory. Would they have gone to the Super Bowl that year? No, of course not. But it would have been nice. They would have won one game. That year was followed by 3 straight losing seasons, and Mark Davis's desperation move to bring John Gruden back into coaching. In that stretch, though, Carr didn't decline statistically. He was about the same, but the team around him got worse. If you're making a case in favor of Derek Carr as an NFL passer, you're going to lean into his passing yards and his low interception rate.
At a great rate.
Carr had over 3,000 passing yards every year where he played in at least 15 games. Sometimes that's because he was playing great, and sometimes that's because his team was in a hole early. He had 4 straight 4,000-yard passing seasons from 2018 to 2021. His career interception percentage is 1.9. That's actually pretty incredible. Aaron Rodgers is number 1 all-time at 1.4%. Mahomes and Brady are 1.8, so Carr could move the ball around and he was safe with it. The biggest problem for Carr is that he only threw for more than 30 touchdowns once. During a stretch of time where Peyton Manning, Patrick Mahomes, Tom Brady, Drew Brees, Matty Stafford, Joe Burrow, Lamar Jackson, and Andrew Luck were ripping 40-plus touchdown seasons with ease, Carr could never manage to get into that upper echelon of passers. Why? Roster consistency. Following 2016, Carr would only get one more full year with receiver Amari Cooper. The Raiders would have a top 10 scoring offense just one more time, and they were 10th when they did it in 2020, and they didn't even make the playoffs that season. Carr, at his worst, was losing 52-0 to the St. Louis Rams or getting sacked 7 times by the 49ers in 2018. 7 of Carr's largest margins of victories all came while he was playing for the Saints. Think about that shit. 27 games in New Orleans versus 142 games with the Raiders. Yes, 2 of those games were in weeks 1 and 2 of the 2024 season when the Saints looked like the best team in the NFL. Carr tossed 4 touchdowns week 1, something he only did 6 other times in his career. Baker Mayfield has 6 4-touchdown games, by the way. But in just a year and a half with the Saints, Carr got complimentary football from his defense and led 7 of his best offensive scoring performances of his career in terms of margin of victory. Derek Carr was the kind of quarterback who played very well when he had the pieces around him. He was never the type of player, though, that was going to elevate a pedestrian roster to contender levels like all the greats do. Unfortunately for Carr, when it looked like all of those pieces were in place, the Raiders blew it up. Now, I talked about many of those things in this video and this video, so let's ignore all of John Gruden and Mike Mayock's terrible drafts. Let's ignore the fact that Josh McDaniels made the exact same mistake he did with Jay Cutler and sent Carr packing for no reason. At least Cutler was still single when that happened. Otherwise, we'd be talking about how Josh McDaniels made Jay Cutler's wife cry too.
Once they made my wife cry, that was pretty much over. You know.
One thing we know for sure about Jay Cutler is, unlike Derek Carr, he is incapable of crying or feeling any emotion. If we ignore all of those big coaching changes and inability to build through the draft and dial in on one other pivotal thing for Carr, it was his bad luck with keeping elite receivers. Amari Cooper, traded. Antonio Brown, cut before ever playing. Devontae Adams, traded. But not even before Carr himself was released. I really believe we'd view Derek Carr more favorably if he got to continue to play with Amari, or if the Raiders had drafted CeeDee Lamb instead of Henry Ruggs. Like Tom Brady, Derek Carr opened up his home to Antonio Brown. Unlike Brady, Carr didn't get a Super Bowl ring, but he did get to keep his wedding ring. It's So that was a positive. Say what you want about Antonio Brown, but when he was on the field, he made the offense better, he made QBs better, and for the 2 weeks of training camp that he was with the Raiders, Derek Carr thought he would throw for 6,000 yards and win MVP by throwing the ball to Brown.
I loved AB. He competes at just a different level. I was going to win MVP that year. Yeah. Derek Carr, good dude, but couldn't handle AB. And I was like, you know what? You're probably right.
Tight end Darren Waller is actually Derek Carr's all-time leading receiver in terms of yards with 3,469. For perspective, Austin Hooper has more career receiving yards and touchdowns than Darren Waller. Neither are top 50 tight ends, by the way. Do you know who his leading touchdown catcher is? It's Amari Cooper with 19. Devontae Adams had 12 with Carr before Derek was benched for Jarrett Stidham in 2022. Had the Raiders not chosen Jimmy Garoppolo over Carr in 2023, it would have been Devontae Adams in just 2 seasons of play. Carr played consistently solid football despite spending his entire career in one of the more unstable organizations in the league. Carr had his second ever winning season with the Raiders in 2021, when John Gruden was forced to resign in shame and interim coach Richard Bisaccia took over. It's not quite the same achievement as Peyton Manning getting to the Super Bowl 4 times with 4 different head coaches, but getting to the postseason with Jack Del Rio and then a Gruden/Bisaccia combo is like an Olive Garden receiving a Michelin star. If it weren't for an overtime win against Dallas Week 12, the Raiders would have lost 6 in a row and missed the dance in 2021. Carr eventually made it to the playoffs, thanks in large part to the Chargers' willingness to settle for a tie and the Raiders' willingness to say, no, our sister kissing days are behind us, even if our owner's haircut says the opposite. In those playoffs, the Raiders met the eventual AFC Super Bowl reps, the Cincinnati Bengals, and this happened. Trailing by 7 early in the first, Carr is betrayed by a boneheaded special teams play. This play to me sums up Derek Carr's career. Anytime he and the Raiders had positive momentum, something, usually by their own volition, brought that momentum to a screeching halt. So instead of getting the ball at the 40, Carr and the offense start on the 2 and ultimately end the drive a yard shy of taking a safety. Carr played pretty well in that game, outside of a rough blindside strip sack. He fired an FDR for a touchdown right before halftime to keep the Raiders alive. Carr's leading receiver in that game was Darren Waller, followed by Zay Jones and Hunter Renfrow, clearly outmatched when you look across the sideline and see Jamar Chase, T. Higgins, and Tyler Boyd. Cincy won 26-19, but Derek Carr kept them in the game. He really did. He had 310 passing yards, a touchdown, and a chance to tie the game on the final play. And in that moment, Derek Carr, to possibly get his first ever playoff win, fires a terrible pass into double coverage and is intercepted on the goal line. Even if that tight window throw is open, I'm not sure Carr has the arm to squeeze that ball in there, but I like that Carr believed he could do it. That's not to say Carr couldn't close out games. He led 35 game-winning drives in his career, 28 fourth-quarter comebacks. That's 6 more game-winning drives than Andy Dalton, who played with better rosters. It's also more game-winning drives than Kirk Cousins. None more exhilarating or bizarre than the Raiders' Week 7 win over the Chiefs in 2017. Carr dropped an absolute dime to Jared Cook on 3rd and 10 to the 2 with 17 seconds left in the game. The catch was reviewed. Carr's ass was down at the 1. It wasn't a touchdown, which forced an 8-second runoff of the clock. 1st and goal with 8 seconds. Carr throws the game-winning TD to Michael No Chains Crabtree. But the Raiders are penalized for offensive pass interference. Next play, Jared Cook drops the touchdown, but KC is penalized. There was no time on the clock, but by rule, the Raiders get an untimed down because the game can't end on a defensive penalty. Carr, for the 3rd time, throws what he thinks is a game-winning touchdown, but Patterson is out of bounds. But, oh God, another Kansas City penalty. And finally, on the 2nd untimed down, Carr hits Michael Crabtree in the front corner of the end zone to win the game. And that's also Derek Priest.
At a great rate.
2013, 14, and 15 were pretty barren quarterback draft classes. Carr was unequivocally the best QB selected in that 3-year window. And of course, he made $200 million. He deserved to retire a Raider, but I'm glad he got a year and a half in New Orleans, even if the second season was ruined by injuries. He and the Saints won 9 games in 2023 and had the 9th highest scoring offense, Carr's 2nd highest mark ever, and that was a disappointment for Saints fans. But to me, it proves Carr could have been a slightly above 500 quarterback had he been in an average situation for his career instead of going 77 and 92. Derek Carr was a respectable quarterback without an exceptional QB trait to make us fall in love with him. He wasn't fast, he didn't have an elite arm, and defenders never got lost in his shadowy eyes. But he also played for the Raiders, who cycled through 4 different head coaches in his career, including 2 interim head coaches with the often forgotten Tony Sparano. Carr's greatest achievement may have been surviving the NFL's greatest curse: drafting a quarterback and firing the coaching staff after their rookie year. Carr's career is a testament to his perseverance, even if none of it was elite, just pretty good most of the time. A great husband with a below-average penis. That's Derek Carr. And I'll always love that Carr got the head coach who drafted him fired twice. And fittingly, Carr retired following that second firing. Well done, Derek.
And I plan on him saying, well done.
I hope you use this play as a metaphor for life and showcase to your parishioners that it doesn't matter how close to the finish line you get. Bad shit can always happen, especially if you had to play for the Raiders. Thanks for watching That's Good Sports. Please subscribe here on YouTube. Don't forget to like this video, share it with your friends, share it with your grandma, make them play it at church. I don't care. Just watch it 2 times.